why you feel like you're the right person to take this position.
I have a strong passion for justice. Sometimes people don't get the justice they deserve.
How do you feel like your experience stacks up against your opponents?
I've been my whole career doing family and civil law. I have way more experience than he does in that arena.
Why do you feel like not having those endorsements actually makes you the best candidate?
Judges need to be impartial, that they keep politics out of the courtroom. It's catastrophic when people don't get the right decisions. I can't stand by and let that happen with people here in Whitman County.
If you commit a traffic infraction in Whitman County or involved in a civil dispute involving less than $100,000, you will likely end up in district court. But Superior Court is where you end up if you are accused of a felony crime. It's also where the majority of large civil cases are tried, including family court, custody cases, and divorce. Our state has a system of these courts in all 39 counties, some large, some small. Whitman County has only one Superior Court judge, and this year, the seat is up for grabs. In the general election, voters will have a choice between two Pullman-based candidates, Roger Sandberg and Jenna Brozik. I sat down with each of them to hear their reasons for running for office and to hear what they bring to the community in this all-important position. Now, I don't have any personal or professional connections with either candidate, other than Sandberg's firm briefly represented me in an employment dispute over a decade ago. My goal with these interviews is to give the community an opportunity to get to know both candidates in a meaningful way, without any attempt to favor one against the other. After speaking with both Roger and Jenna, I can say that I'm impressed with both candidates' backgrounds and the experience that they bring to the table. I was also struck by their differences. They come from different legal pathways and have chosen to serve our community with their own unique and differing strengths. Now, I will not be endorsing anybody in this race. I want our community to have a chance to evaluate these candidates honestly and without bias, side by side. I did my best to ask the two individuals more or less the same set of questions, cover the same issues, and give them an equal chance to make their case as to why they feel that they are the best choice for Whitman County Superior Court. Who makes the most compelling case will be up to you. Oh, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm curious, you said 17 years you've been on the Palouse. What brought you out to this area?
Are you starting filming now, or?
We are filming, yes.
Oh, we are. Okay. Okay, thanks. So interesting enough, my husband went to WSU, and so he
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs, exactly. He got his PhD here, and so we moved up here because he got the job offer up here, and we thought it'd be a great place to raise our kids. So.
And has it been?
It has. Yeah. It has.
I agree. I have 5 kids. This is just the greatest.
Yeah.
Every time I travel, every time I go somewhere else, I'm reminded about why I love it here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a great place. So 17 years?
So yeah, we lived here 17 years. I'm originally from Texas.
Oh, what part of Texas?
Houston.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so
it's muggy down there. It's drier up here.
Very hot. Very hot. I had a previous career in the film and television industry.
No way. Oh, so this is all familiar to you?
Yes. It is.
Welcome to our makeshift studio in an old combine shop.
Exactly. So it is familiar. Yeah. So I did lighting for films and television.
Oh, wow.
And so I was a gaffer, and I lived in Los Angeles for 13 years. And then I had to negotiate with producers who would take your firstborn child if you let them. And so I moved to Albuquerque. I wanted to get out of the smog and the traffic in LA, and I worked in the film industry there. And I met my husband, who was a professor at UNM, University of New Mexico. And so when we met, we got married, and then he got the job offer out here, WSU. So we moved here in 2007 in a snowstorm.
So not the best first impression.
No, not the best first. And I was in a minivan sliding all over the place. And our twins were 3 months old. And so he got the job offer here. So we said, this is a great place to raise kids. You know, we wanted to get out of Albuquerque, so there's more crime and traffic and everything else. And so that's how we ended up here. And then when my kids were 2, I went to law school at University of Idaho.
Go Vandals.
Yes.
I'm a Vandal as well.
All right. So I'm a Vandal and a Coug.
Nice. Nice. We're all
If you can be both.
You can.
Yes. I'm definitely a Vandal.
Yeah. So that explains why you came. Tell me why you stayed.
So yeah, I went to law school. My kids were 2. I got out of law school. My kids were 5. I went to work for Beth Prince in 2010, and she had a practice in Pullman, and she was ready to retire. And so
got it. So the timing was good.
The timing was really good.
Love that.
And so I came in as an associate. I worked with her for 2 years, and she was a great mentor. I learned a lot. And then I took over the practice and I started my own business. So
awesome. And how long ago was that?
So she left in 2012. She retired in 2012. Yeah. I started working for her in 2010.
But it's been your practice now for over a decade.
Since 2012.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, fellow small business owner.
Yes, exactly.
So I got asked then, what makes someone want to leave a successful private practice and essentially become a government employee as Superior Court judge?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's good to have your own private practice, and it's good to, as far as have people come in and out and help the community. But I think I can do that as a judge too. So one of the reasons I decided to run for the position is I've been helping people in the community, and as an attorney, helping them through hard times, the most difficult times of their lives, and helping them through the court system and navigate the court system. But I've seen sometimes people don't get the justice they deserve in Superior Court, and there's no reason for that. I felt like I need to do something. I need to make sure people get the justice they deserve when they go in front of the court. And so I have a strong passion for justice. I want people. I care about the community. I care about the people in the community. I want to make sure everyone gets a fair shot coming into court. When I've been in Superior Court the last 14 years, I feel like that hasn't always happened. And so that's why I wanted to run.
Awesome. Well, when we think about Whitman County Superior Court, there's high profile cases that come up. We recently had that child kidnapping down in Mexico. Everyone wants to talk about the Pac-12 case, right? But most of being a judge in Superior Court is a bit more mundane than that. Tell me about your approach, just kind of the day-to-day, the small cases that make up the bulk of the docket.
So, right. I mean, the majority of the cases are the family law, the civil law, the criminal cases, the felonies. But in criminal cases, a lot of times it's procedural. The proceedings are procedural. So you have arraignment, you have pretrial hearings, you have those kind of hearings. And it's, 5 to 10, 15-minute hearings. The bulk of what the judge is going to do in the civil area is you're going to make decisions, and you're going to weigh the evidence, and you're going to say, look at the statute and say, what is the best outcome for these people based on the law, right? And so I did a public records request, and 77% of the cases are civil, family, and probate that were filed in Superior Court.
Wow.
Last year. 23% were criminal. Yeah. There may be a little bit more proceedings on the criminal side than the civil side, but on the civil side, on the proceedings, the judge is always making a discretionary decision, usually. There are some review hearings and those kind of things, guardianship cases that have review hearings, but on the civil side, the judge has the most discretion. So in the criminal side, the jury is going to decide if the defendant is guilty or not. Civil side, the judge is going to decide. A lot of times both sides are serious issues that come before the judge that's going to affect people the rest of their lives. And people in Whitman County, most likely they're going to find themselves on the civil side. They're going to find themselves either in a divorce or a probate or a dispute over an estate or something like that. And those kind of decisions the judge makes is going to affect their families and those people the rest of their lives. And it's serious. And I've seen that. So I've seen that in court. So I've seen that from a case I had back in, 2014 or so, family law case. And, one of the decisions from the judge was that the parties had a 50-50 custody, which, sometimes that really works for people in certain situations. And the statute also says you may order a 50-50, but you have to consider all these other factors.
Yeah.
And the primary factor is the bond between the parents, between each parent. So the discretion the judge has is huge. So they could maybe not pick one of those other factors, or maybe not enforce the law and say, okay, I'm going to take this factor as the strongest factor. So I found a case where, years ago, it was a 50-50 schedule, and I was representing the mom, and basically at the time the dad, I think, was doing marijuana, having substance abuse issues. The judge ordered a 50-50. And that's what was in front of the judge. That's the evidence he had. Later on, I ran into her in a grocery store. And she said, how's your son doing? And, now he's 15, 16, right? He was 5 at the time. Well, he's dropped out of school and he's living with his dad, smoking pot all day. So I'm not saying that was the wrong decision of the judge. I'm just saying how these kind of decisions the judge makes are huge, that'll affect people the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you balance those situations where the law clearly has guidelines, but then there's discretion sensitivities for the moment? Like, how do you personally process that? What lens do you view that through?
So, and especially in civil cases, I mean, the statutes list the factors that you consider. So, as long as you follow the law and you abide by the statutes, you're enforcing those, what the legislature put out there. So I think one of the problems is there are judges out there that legislate from the bench. So they will say what factor they think is more important, and then they'll make a ruling on that, which it shouldn't be that way. It should never be that way. The legislature makes the law. Right. The judges follow the law. And so, yes, the judge has a lot of discretion, and especially in the civil side, and you need to be careful not to abuse that discretion. Mm-hmm. You need to look at the factors and look at each fact or each case and weigh the facts carefully and make sure you give each side consideration. Yeah. And interesting in civil cases is preponderance of the evidence most of the time. So it's more likely than not, which evidence is going to be, more likely than not going to be, which side the judge should order.
Sure. Especially in family law, but also in civil cases, you're going to end up in situations where there are no winners.
Yes. Where
this is just bad for the family, it's bad for the children, it's bad all around. How do you balance those lose-lose situations where the law requires certain things, but there's people involved? So,
yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of mediations. I'm also a certified mediator, and so I've helped people resolve issues and disputes. And a lot of what I do is family law, probates, estate disputes, those kind of things. I also do criminal law. But being a mediator, I mean, one mediator friend told me, I mean, the best thing in a mediation is both sides go away unhappy because, they both have compromised. But the situation is you have to look at what's best. You look at the statute, for instance, what's the best interest of the child, in family law cases. And, I think you just have to look at the facts and weigh the evidence to see which one's more credible. And as we know, a lot of people in court, they don't always tell the truth, unfortunately. So you have a lot of people writing declarations and then declarations on this side. So the judge really has to carefully consider who has the most evidence, who's probably the most credible.
Yeah. So we live in a rural part of the state where there's a lot of family farms. And it's kind of a running tragic joke that very few family farms actually get successfully passed off to the next generation. They tend to break up and fragment and all that. And in Superior Court, you're going to see plenty of probate cases, property cases, that kind of thing. What do you bring to the table in terms of being knowledgeable and being able to adjudicate on that in a fair and equitable way?
So I've done, hundreds of probates. That's what I mostly do. And the thing about it is you look at the case, for the facts. A lot of times you'll have an estate that has a will, and you have to follow the will. You have to follow the intention of the testator. And so a lot of times when you have cases like that, and I've represented a lot of farmers as well, and disputes and things You look at the intent of the testator. Did they intend to leave the land to, their family? A lot of times they do. A lot of times, and so, the intent of the testator is usually going to prevail. So I've had a lot of experience with probates. I've had a lot of experience with real estate. A lot of, disputes over real estate, over people going to court, fighting over people's estates, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's really important. I know how important it is myself that, if land has been in the family and they want to keep it in the family for generations, I can see that. I know how that's important. I can see that in people's wills. And I can see, that basically you just have to follow the law. If you follow the law, then people will have justice in Superior Court. So I've also been an adjunct professor of law at the University of Idaho College of Law. And so I taught wills, trusts, and estates and probates. So for me, I have a really deep understanding of that area of the law. And there's a lot more disputes in Superior Court than you think in that area of law. So I think I'd bring a lot to the table. I've done also, a lot of what you do in probates is deeds and transferring property from one to the other. You also have to, I've done a lot of cases. I've worked a lot with the title companies here and things like that, where there may be something that there was a hiccup in the title or something transferring, and you need to, fix the deed or do something like that. And so I've done a lot as far as in real estate in general, I'd say.
So that's the property owner side of real estate. We also have a very large rental industry. And I imagine that there's quite a few tenant-landlord disputes that eventually work their way up, evictions, that sort of thing, that work their way up to Superior Court.
Oh yeah.
What's your philosophy when it comes to those sorts of cases to make sure that the renters of our community are treated fairly? There was a huge backlog because of COVID, and the moratoriums the governor put out as far as, and renters were able to stay in their places longer because they were given a chance to, get back on their feet and those kind of things because of COVID. Now those moratoriums have lifted. And so you have to balance, the tenant with the landlord's rights too, because the landlords, even though the tenant couldn't pay their rent per se, they had to pay their mortgage. And so how do they pay their mortgage when the tenant's there and hasn't paid in a year or so, or, but you have to look at each situation and say, okay, first of all, what was the moratorium? What was the law? And you look at the factors and you determine, okay, what is the right decision in this case? But you always, according to the law, you're always looking at, if the moratorium is in place, then that's what you have to rule on. If it's not, then you rule on whatever the RCWs are. So, it's a constant balance. I think you have to look at to make sure that everybody has a fair shot in front of the judge, and that every side is considered carefully and every party is respected.
Do the rules favor one side or the other generally in Washington?
I would say no, it doesn't favor one side or the other. I would say because of judge's discretion, that they could favor one side or the other. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, I was running, because there shouldn't be an abuse of discretion. And the only remedy that you have in a civil case, if there's an abuse of discretion in front of the judge, is you can appeal it. You can do a motion for reconsideration after 10 days after the final judgment. But a lot of times you're doing that motion for reconsideration in front of that same judge.
Right.
So
I'm not going to go back and admit that they were wrong about the first time.
No.
Yeah.
Most likely not. And so if that judge makes a decision wrong the first time, you do a motion for reconsideration, but rarely ever goes through. And then you can make an appeal, but that's a very complicated process. You have to hire an attorney, and that's $10,000 to $15,000 at least. So now you're in the appeals process, and a lot of people can't do that. They can't go on to appeal. The judge needs to get it right the first time. The judge needs to follow the law the first time, so that everybody has gotten a fair shot and a fair decision that's according to the law. But that doesn't always happen in Superior Court.
Right. You've mentioned several times just in our time here that you've seen examples in Superior Court where you don't feel like the plaintiff got justice. I obviously can't ask you about specific cases or examples. That's not how this works. But that's a big move to come in and try and right some of those wrongs. Tell me about the experience that you bring to the table, why you feel like you're the right person to take this position further than it was before, to do better than your predecessors.
So I think the experience I bring to the table is I have the most experience in the civil and family arena.
Meaning you have that's the bulk of your professional experience?
The bulk of my practice.
Okay.
My professional experience and, teaching as far as, being an adjunct professor. That is the bulk of it. I do criminal law as well. But also the bulk of my practice is I've done, everything that they kind of they're interrelated. You know what I mean? Because you'll do estates, you'll do real estate, I've done a lot of LLCs, a lot of business law. I've done guardianships, I've done dependencies, I've done, a lot of that is all interrelated. And so my as far as my background is huge in the civil arena.
In private practice.
In private practice, yeah. And I do criminal as well, but what I can bring to the table, I've done so many trials with child experts, and I've done so many trials with, as far as like dependencies, where I've represented children in dependencies, I represented parents in dependencies, I've represented foster parents. I see what the difficult challenges that they come across through the judicial system that we have. I've seen that. I've represented fathers, I've represented mothers, I've represented, people all throughout the civil arena that, and I see the challenges they've had in running through the judicial system. And I think I can make it better. I know I can make it better for them. I know I can. I know I can improve as far as one of the things I want to do as a Superior Court judge is I want to make rules in the civil arena where when you file a case, basically you're going to get a scheduling order. And it's going to say, okay, when are we going to do the trial? When are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Interrogatories are due, witness lists are due, those kind of things. I've had cases in Superior Court that last 7 years, 6 years. I had a divorce that was 6 years. People want a resolution. They don't want.
Wow, like the trial went 7 years?
No.
Just the dispute.
Just the dispute.
Wow.
It went to trial. Actually, both cases, the probate that I had that was fighting over estates, that was 7 years. I was the second attorney on that, so I came in the end and I finished it. Same with the divorce. I came in on the end and finished it. But there is no reason that you should be disputing over something for 7 years in Superior Court or 6 years. And I think the judge, as judge, I can do something about that. I want to make sure that the civil cases go, if you file, I want to make sure that we get a resolution within a year or, at the most 2 years. I want to get these cases out of there for people. When your life is in limbo like this, it's just, you can't imagine the stress that people go under.
Yeah.
They just want resolution. They just want
There's a real human cost to that.
Yeah, they just want it over. Yeah.
Yeah. So what practical experience career-wise do you have that makes you think you're the best person to sit on the bench there?
So the practical experience I have is like I said, I have so much working with the people of Whitman County, fighting for them, fighting for their rights, fighting to make sure they get fair, results in the justice system. I've served the community quite a bit. So I've done a lot of pro bono, people that couldn't afford an attorney. I've worked with alternatives to violence at the Palouse. really closely with them. I've worked with law students for wills clinics for veterans, supervised those for free. I've been out there in the community. I've served the community, and the judge is a service position to the community. And one of the reasons I got into law school was to help people, and it's gratifying to help people. As judge, I know I can help people. I know I can help them get resolutions to their disputes. I know I can do that, and I want to do that for people. I care about the people of Whitman County. That's why I'm running, because I saw the results that some of the people that I cared about happened to that should have never happened. They didn't get the justice they deserved. And so I want to make sure all of people in Whitman County get a fair shot and get the justice they deserve.
Awesome. Switching gears a little bit, your opponent has a number of high-profile endorsements from the current judge sitting in that position and the one before that. You've been open about how you feel like your status as an outsider actually makes you more qualified for this position. Tell me a little bit about that. Why do you feel like not having those endorsements actually makes you a better person for this job?
Well, it's not a secret. When Judge Frazier retired, basically on the front page of the paper, he had Judge Leiby there saying he endorsed Judge Leiby. Nobody ran against Judge Leiby. Okay. Now Judge Leiby's retired, and on the front page of the paper, he endorsed Roger Sandberg. So to me, there's a system where they just want to hand the baton over to someone else, which is a system of, I think, of favoritism. So for me, I'm not part of that group. I'm not part of that club. I'm an independent person out there. I'm running based on what I stand for, not who I know. I don't hang out with them. I'm not in their club. I think what's really important is you have an independent judiciary. So if you don't have one, the justice system breaks down. It's super important.
Yeah. If you had received the endorsement of Judge Leiby, would you have turned it down?
I have to consider that carefully. I'd have to consider that carefully, I have to say. Yeah, I don't want to answer that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, it is an interesting value proposition, though, because on one hand, we certainly see the value of true independence, but on the other hand, experience matters, and what you bring to the table matters.
So, yes, if I'm elected judge, I'm not going to go campaign against my opponent or campaign for one side or the other. Mm-hmm. That's where the judicial system, I think, you've crossed the line a little bit. I have endorsements from lots of judges as well. And that's okay. That's good to have endorsements. I think when a presiding judge is actively campaigning for one over the other, that's where there's a question of impartiality there. And even if it's not impartial, there's an impression of impartiality. And I have the judicial canons here, and that's why I brought them with me. So a judge will act at all times in the manner that promotes public confidence in the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the judiciary, and shall avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. So, even if they do think, even if, the previous judges think he's the best person for the job, there's an appearance of impropriety. I would never do that as judge. I would never do that to my successor. I'm not going to hand pick my successor.
So I guess I have to go back to my earlier question. If you had gotten the endorsement of the previous holder, would you turn it down?
I have to tell you, I have to think about that carefully. So, I don't think he would have endorsed me. So I don't think that is even going to come up.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, In 5 to 10 years, assuming that you get this position, how do you hope the community is better off as a result of you sitting in that position?
Oh, I hope the community is better off because they'll get their disputes settled in a reasonable time frame, and they're not going to be stagnant in the court. I want to make sure that people get their disputes settled in a timely fashion. I think they'll be better off as far as the civil and family law arena. I'm hoping that they are better off, that there's, that, when the judge follows the law as far as the RCWs, there's a reason for that. The legislature has done research on why we have these laws out there, why there's factors for certain things, whether it be landlord-tenant, whether it be dependencies, whether it be family law. There are reasons why the legislature put these laws there for the judge to follow, and as long as the judge follows the law, which I am going to do, I'm not going to favor one side or the other based on, some kind of personal preference or something else. People will have justice in Superior Court, and that's the most important thing, because our system breaks down. If people don't believe they're going to get a fair shot in court, then the system is broken.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this election and how this is different than, say, voting for state senator or voting for county commissioner. A lot of times people vote for these positions based on party lines. There's a lot less information out there about your candidates because this is specifically meant to be nonpartisan, right? Right. So how do you set yourself apart in an election like this, where you don't have a party affiliation? We're not talking about those kind of issues. The whole idea is that you're impartial.
Right. It's one of the things is what I've said in my website, I've said in all my literature, is you have to keep politics out of the courtroom. And I think it's more important even now with everything that's out there, that judges need to be impartial, that they keep politics out of the courtroom, that, everything has to be, like, I know I keep saying it over and over, I sound like a broken record, but rules according to the law.
Yeah.
As long as you do that as judge, then everything, people will get the justice they came there for. And they'll get a fair resolution. People just want a fair resolution to their disputes. They just want a fair shot. Every defendant that goes in front of the judge for a crime or, is charged for a crime, they just want a fair shot. They just want their rights to be protected. They want to make sure, and that's what the judge is there to make sure happens too, that, everyone is treated respectfully, their rights are protected. So the judge is kind of the person who oversees all of that.
Well, I would hope that impartiality would be like the starting point, right? Like that's the minimum that we should all expect from our elected judges. Experience also matters. Mm-hmm. It matters a lot. And how do you feel like your experience stacks up against your opponents?
So he's been a criminal defender for I think the last 5 or 6 years. So I know he has more criminal experience, and there's just no way as a private person in private practice that I can do as many cases as him as a public defender. Okay, but that doesn't mean I don't have the criminal experience. I've been doing criminal law since 2010. I've been supervising attorneys that do criminal law since 2014, sorry. So I've been doing criminal. I have a case right now that's about to go in front of a jury for criminal law. So just because I haven't done as many cases doesn't mean I don't have the experience to do the criminal law. And the other thing too is I have my books over here. The rules of evidence are the same. Whether you have done jury trials, whether you've done bench trials, I've done numerous bench trials. The rules of evidence are the same. So I know that that's one of the things that he's pointed out, that I don't have as much criminal experience, but now that I've explained it, I hope that alleviates anyone, to think that I don't have enough criminal experience to do this. The other thing too is, I've been my whole career doing family and civil law, everything in that arena. I have way more experience than he does in that arena. And that's going to make the difference, because that's where the most discretion the judge has, is in the civil and the family law. In the criminal law, yes, we do have discretion. The judge does. We have discretion in the sentencing. We have discretion in bonds. We have discretion in bail, those kind of things. But it's up to the prosecutor to bring those charges against the defendant. It's, and 97% of the cases last year, criminal cases, they were pled. 97%. There were 6 criminal jury trials last year.
Only 6?
Only 6.
Huh.
I think there's more this year. I haven't done the exact, I haven't gotten the data yet. But so if you think about the kind of decisions the judge is going to make from day-to-day decisions, it's going to be in that family and civil arena mostly. Yes, we are going to have proceedings in criminal side, of course, and that's important, of course. But I have the most experience in the area where it matters the most.
All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's as we wrap up, give us your best elevator pitch for why you believe you're the best candidate for Whitman County Superior Judge.
I think that I'm the most independent candidate running. Okay, meaning that there's anybody that comes in front of me in court, they're going to know that there's no favoritism, no bias, I'm impartial. I'm going to rule according to the law. I'm going to look at both sides carefully and respect people, each side equally. And I will give everybody a fair shot. And that's all that people want, is a fair shot. And that hasn't happened every time in Superior Court. Of course, it can't happen every time, but you should strive for that. And I know that I will make sure that happens for people. And that I am, as you can tell, I have a strong passion for justice, and I can't. It's catastrophic when people don't get the right decisions in cases that the judge makes in Superior Court. For the rest of their lives and their family's life, it's going to affect them. And it could be negatively affect them. And I can't stand by and let that happen with people here in Whitman County. I care about them too much.
Awesome. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for sitting down. This was great.
Thanks for watching. I hope you got to know Jenna a little better through this conversation. Please now go and watch my interview with Roger Sandberg. Our community deserves to have an informed electorate that evaluates all the candidates for their strengths and weaknesses. So make sure you watch both interviews and make sure that you mail in your ballot by November 5th.